this is pretty much the order of operations. We're going to talk about kind of guild leadership structure, who to go to for what our plans are long term for the guild, kind of what we're hoping to accomplish with the guild as far as the community goes, and then the raid specific topics on the second half. But we can get into the guild leadership side of things. So obviously, I'm McFaithful. I am the guild master. Our guild theme of being the scholar society requires us to make a choice as to whether or not the ranks were apps related or scholar related. We thought it might have been taking the acronym a little too far to make ranks such as whole any other ass related topics. I can't quite think of any on the fly now. So we went with the scholarly method. So got the archivists, preceptors, professors, lecturers, and instructors on our tenure track. So any of these positions, these 5 positions in particular, are all leadership roles. Anybody else, anything from a novice through a mentor, are what we call rank and file positions. So those are all, standard member roles. Obviously, the higher up than that denotes the longer you've been in the guild. So our structure on promotions for those positions are 7 days for the first promotion from novice, and then to acolyte. Thank you. I was looking for the second rank, and then it's 2 weeks for acolyte up to scholar, followed by 3 weeks from scholar to tutor, and then 4 weeks from tutor to mentor. One rule that we're pretty ardent about as far as people looking to get into leadership positions is that you've been promoted to at least a tutor before being promoted into the tenure track. So just keep that in mind, especially while we're new, and as time goes by and we're kind of feeding into that leadership role. We're going to be pretty stringent about that requirement of at least having, I think that would be 6 weeks in guild before you're asked to do anything leadership wise. A little bit about me. I've got a WoW CV now. Never thought I'd have to put that together. But just so you kind of have an idea of what my background is, I've been running mega guilds like this one since 2019 Classic. Before that, though, I've been a GM essentially, or at least at the very least a raid leader since TBC Retail. Did 2 private servers, Elysium and Nost. Played basically from almost launch of vanilla through Warlords of Draenor uninterrupted. Main to DK, server top DK and Wrath of the Lich King during ICC. And then you can see some of the other characters I've got experience with there. And I also run Raid Team 1 for the guild. And then our next up, these are our officers, traditional officers who everyone kind of answers to. So we got Minari. He and I have been friends since high school. He's been an officer in guilds with me since about 2012. He helps me run Raid Team 1. Jim the Great, we also know in real life. Funny enough, Minari and I actually first met him through the game on Elysium. In 2017, he runs Raid Team 2, and then Gilly is the baby of the bunch. So we just met him during this launch, but he's been stepping up and helping. And most of you, I think, already know him. If you don't already, I'm sure you'll come to know him. And he has been an excellent addition at the helm. So we'll move on here to the professor role. We've got 2 tracks. So this is the guild wide versus the raid specific. So our professor role is essentially events coordination in one form or another. The guild wide, Samaria is currently the only one that holds a guild wide professor position. She is our self-proclaimed dungeon mistress. So she's been putting together some of those events like Spooky Saturdays and Mauling Mondays, depending on who's doing what. Attunement Tuesdays, I think, is the other one. And then we have our raid-specific professors who are taking on that assistant raid lead position. One thing you'll see a lot of acronyms for our raids. ARL is assistant raid lead, RL obviously raid leader, and then we do all of our raid teams as RT1 through what will soon be hopefully 4, depending on how we do with that. The other rank that we have underneath professor is our oh, thank you, lecturers, for going back. Lecturers, which are our class leadership, and I'm just going to run through those quickly. For those of you who are, maybe starting a new character, who are first time on a specific class, or not, maybe have played a class but not in vanilla and want some coaching. These are people who are there who can help you. Each of them, whether for a hybrid class, there may be more than one. We'll go into those situations in a second, but these are the people that monitor our Discord class channels. And so they were the ones that will be answering your questions should any arise on diagnosing issues, getting you up to speed, whether it be spec or gearing, rotation, stuff like that. So druids, we've got McMumbo. Hunter, we've got Dinsdale. Mage is Galamera. Paladins, we have Stones, who's also one of our professors. Priests, Kikyo does all of our shadow information for priests, and Keitel works on our healing priests. We've got Wine Drinker for our rogues. Warlocks are Roaches, who actually needs to get his promo still because he's just coming in today. And then we've got Warriors, which is Immedible and Ophel, who split the duty for DPS Warriors. And then, hold on, I'm lost my slides. And then both are who coordinates all of our tanks. And that's pretty much it for the for the leadership. So, like I said, the dynamic here is, as far as the guild-wide administration stuff, the preceptors and I take care of that. Raid specific information, raid leaders and professors take care of that. You can see there's some overlap amongst those. Basically, everybody who's in a preceptor role and myself also take on a leadership role within a raid team. One, be it 1, 2, or 3, and then our class leads are all there to help out. Those are all the lecturers. Instructors, I'm not sure. To my knowledge, I'm not sure anybody fits that position just yet. I think everybody else has been bumped up from there, even if they were at that role at one point in time. But that's definitely something we'll plan on expanding in the future. And things are still pretty new, and we're planning on taking the guild a long ways. So there's no particular interest in rushing to toss people into leadership positions, but we are looking to grow as we move forward, because one thing is that we want to keep this guild going around for a while. Obviously, this is going to launch from vanilla through TBC, so we are planning on sticking around through that. So good to know for those of you who are thinking, hey, maybe my schedule doesn't fit right now. I'm not sure I'm too into raiding in vanilla. I'd rather raid later. This is still going to be a good long-term place for you to wind up. Because we are already looking ahead at what we are planning on doing. So obviously we started strong with Molten Core and Nixia, have 3 teams up already, roster being put together for the 4th one. And we're planning on taking it through to the end, transition strong into TBC when the time comes. If everybody sticks around, that puts us at 16 Karazhan teams and 8 25-mans, or some silly number like that. But we're all committed to making it work. So realistically, the only bar to something like that happening is everybody here, and the extent to which you all are willing to put in that kind of commitment. I know we haven't gotten a blue post officially saying that the Lich King is a done deal. I think I speak for most of us saying that, pray to God that they say yes, it will be moving into Wrath. And then, like I said, if it's moving into Wrath, we will be too. And then same thing with Cataclysm. If they announce it, we'll stick around through that. That's about the extent of my commitment. I'm willing to sign myself up to something like 4.5, 5 years worth of the game at this point, and probably no more. Some of you may have heard me say this is my last time playing World of Warcraft, and when I sign off from this server for the last time, it will be the last time I play. So I'm planning on taking it as far as I can, knowing that I don't want to play till the 30th anniversary personally. Um, so that's why I have a lot of commitment in seeing this working for us right now. Six. I'm gonna let you keep mop all to yourself. I'm just reading through some of the comments before we move on into this next section here. Um, Community standards, guys. This is a direct copy and paste from one of our Discord pages, which has all of our community standards posted in a little bit more detail, along with some other guild rules. If you haven't already looked at that channel, I would recommend that you take some time to. Number one thing is I absolutely despise the 2025 gamer community outside of this guild. Uh, it is toxic, min maxy, and so we have tried our best to insulate ourselves from that type of atmosphere. And with that comes a couple of requirements, amongst them being respectful to one another. And second to that is absolutely no politics. I really pride this guild and myself on having created a space in which you can play the game as it was meant to be played with someone who you may in fact hate if you knew each other in real life. But you will just be ignorant of that fact as you enjoy your time playing. So that's what we're going for with all these. I'm not going to go point by point through these rules. People can read them themselves, but that's what we're trying to work on in creating this kind of a community. So please keep that in mind, especially those top two rules: being kind to one another, and then absolutely no politics. We are going to make sure we keep that. And now, in line with our community standards and actually building a fun place to game, we have our new award that we're planning on putting out now to each of our monthly guild meetings. So if I didn't mention that at the top, this is the third Wednesday of the month, and I'm intending to do, albeit much shorter in the future, but every third Wednesday we'll try and put on a quick update on where the guild is, basically in a similar format, and it'll be just before Raid Team 1 launches on Wednesday. So it'll be a little earlier in the night than 9 p.m. It'll probably be closer to 8:30, but we will do those on the third Wednesdays of the month. And so at each of those, we will announce our kind of our employee of the month type award. And so the benefit of this for us is that our winner of the biggest ass award is going to receive 1 month off of raid dues. So from here on in until the next guild meeting, you get for your raid dues are going to be covered. And then after you're back to paying dues, and the next biggest ass is get the next month off. So our first winner, who was kind enough to submit a screenshot for my slide here, is Hercule, who has been incredibly helpful to a lot of people. I've gotten, I think, a ridiculous amount of messages from multiple people about him being helpful in guild runs, passing up on like 400 gold pieces for guild members to take because they needed to equip it, not saying a word about it. So definitely been solid. So Herc, enjoy the fanfare in the chat. Unfortunately, unlike in Raid Team 1, I can't let everyone speak all at once and hurrah for you. And I don't have soundboards. I already looked. I was hoping to play some toxic sound in celebration for you, but I wasn't able to. But yeah, so congrats, Herc, and thanks again. So keep in mind, those are things we're paying attention for. Also, yeah, Ophel, it really would be a shit show. You're right. But also keep in mind, if you see something, say something. It's not just for TSA. It's also for AS. If there's somebody who did something kind for you, if there's somebody who you've noticed has gone out of their way in helping the guild, please reach out to a preceptor or myself and let us know so that we can recognize them, much like we are with Herc right now. So again, good congrats on Herc for that. So next we're going to move into some guild administrative stuff. And honestly, there are people who've been here a long time who still ask me questions like this. So this is going to be a really good coverage for people who need this information, who might have just missed it in Discord in the past. There are 4 add-ons that are recommended, highly recommended for the guild. They go in ascending order of importance, okay? Uh, Guild roster manager is not necessary to have, but it helps give you some information. It'll track mains and alts. And then Mapmate is a great add-on that will let you view anybody in guild where they are on your map. It'll track through layers, so even if you're not on the same layer, you will be able to see that. Nova World Buffs obviously tracks layers. You can view guild members in which layer they're on, track buff drops. This is important for raiders to be able to know when they'll be able to get Oni buff. Um, and then G-Bank Classic is the most important of those. So there's no guild bank until TBC, so I have 2 characters created um, that are dedicated guild bank characters. That means that in order to see what's on my characters, you need this add-on to see what's in their bags and bank. I update that almost every day, if not every other day. This is where information from, or excuse me, this is where math from raid teams comes in, and then sorry, I'm reading chat too, Gal. I just got a couple people mentioning that audio has been in and out. Gilly, are you still? Am I still coming in clear on your side?
Yeah, you're still coming in clear on my side.
All right, sorry. I just want to make sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I suspect it's probably an internet problem for people who are having the in and outs versus my end. So we'll chug along. But yeah, so the way that our request system works on Guildbank Classic, you'll see the asterisk on the note on the bottom. I do not take Whisper requests for the Guildbank. If you have requested something from the Guildbank via Whisper, chances are I've either ignored you because I'm busy or told you to DM me the exact same message all over again in Discord. So save yourself the time, effort, and trouble, and just send me the message in Discord in the first place, and I will get back to you. Um, Sometimes you'll need to follow up with me. I can think one person that I had forgotten about that actually requested something that I'm probably going to, right after this meeting, go and grab for them. But that's the best system we've got because guild banks are not a thing yet. So DM me requests. If I can make it happen, I will. If I can't, I'll tell you why. And then the strongest add-on that we have is no add-on at all, but a separate program, and that is Discord, which we're all on right now. I've worked pretty hard to get this Discord server organized in a way that I think provides people all of the information that they need, no more, no less. The problem is that Discord, for some reason, has not made it so that you automatically get channels that are added into the server. I literally couldn't tell you why. I haven't been able to fix it. If somebody's got a workaround on that, please let me know. But in the meantime, this here is the only way I can tell you to get all of the information you're entitled to on this server. So these are the 3 steps you need to follow: is clicking channels and roles, then going to browse channels, and then following all of the visible channels. Because I can tell you right now, there are several of you that have had invisible channels, you've missed information, missed announcements, and then have come back to me and said, oh, I just found this, thanks, never mind. So I would really recommend people doing this at least once a week. I think I don't often make changes to the Discord, but when I do, it's usually, frankly, to add a channel that I think is going to help. So, like, I know some people have literally not have their class channel with information that they were asking me about. Some people didn't have raid channels for their team or for bench signups. Some people didn't have Group Finder that just got put out a couple days ago. So definitely make sure that you're following all of the channels in Discord because there's a lot of information. It's well organized, but it only works if you can actually see it. As far as the guild stuff goes, that's what I've got before we get into raid specifics. So we're definitely more than halfway through this right now. I want to take a second. If anybody has any questions, I'll take a couple. You can do the request to speak function or type it into the chat. So anything that I've covered so far, I'll give a second. If anyone has a question that they want to ask, you can just, I think you literally can raise your hand like a Zoom meeting, and I can give you perms to speak for a minute to ask, and otherwise we can move on to the raid half. But I won't linger too long. If I don't see any questions in the meantime, we will just move along into the raid portion. Oh, I do have a request to speak. All right. Aldred, I just sent you the invite to hop in. What you got? You're muted right now.
Sorry, did you cover professions?
I didn't, but the professions channel in Discord is one that I think has been hidden for a few, so it's a good segue from the last topic. So we do have a professions channel. If you have professions with particular patterns that you have available that people are looking for, please put it in the professions channel. One other practice note is I've noticed like conversations happening in that channel or requests happening in that channel. That's not the appropriate location for those comments. That's better off in adept chat or aspiring chat. That channel is just for someone with professions to post their profession. What's more, if you have a profession in there and you get new patterns, don't post a new post with just the new patterns. Go back to your original post, edit it, and add in the additional patterns, please. It's a little cumbersome to have 6 posts disjointed from the same people. So I'm going to go through and clean that up at some point, I suspect, in the next week or so. But if you have posts in there that you have committed those infractions on in the meantime, it would be much appreciated if you were to save me the time and take care of those on your own in the meantime. But thank you, Aldred, for that. I got Samius now looking for a question. So, Samius, what do you got? I just sent you the request.
Yeah, I know it's still a bit out, and we're not super sweaty or anything. But what is the guild stance on AQ40 opening event and all that stuff? Or is that something we're gonna compete for? You think, or just a curiosity, really?
Yeah, you know, I'm not 100% sure where we're going to be at on that in terms of competing with anybody right now. We're starting to look towards BWL, and we are getting a jump on patches as they come out. So it's tough to say exactly where we're going to be at that point. I'd say more on that later. Right now, and we're still trying to do get everybody going, get everybody up to speed. The thing about MC Oni content is it really is the easiest of everything. And so we're kind of using this as the proving ground to see where we shape up by the time BWL drops across 3 and soon to be 4 teams. So I would say, like I said, more on that at some point.
Right. Cool. Thank you.
Yep. I know. Sorry, that one's a little non-committal as it stands, but that's about the best I can do right now. We're trying to really focus on things that are coming up quickly with the faster release pace.
I noticed a question in the chat earlier. I'm assuming it was a serious question. Somebody asked about what if they have problems paying the 5 gold for the raid dues. So, and I
Yeah,
understand, sometimes if you're just hitting 60, 5 gold seems like a lot. The way it ends up working out though, like for your pocket, is you're paying 5 gold to go in, but you're typically going to make between 10 and 15 gold just off of the silver and gold that gets picked up off the bosses and ads. So you end up actually coming out a little bit better. We collect the 5 gold because it helps pay for some consumes and allows us to save up for when the consumes get a little bit more expensive, when the content gets a little bit more difficult.
yeah, and so especially now that the bottom fell out of the Black Lotus market a little bit, and hopefully those prices keep plummeting, we're looking at as stuff comes up, as we look towards BWL, that like flasks are going to be a thing. Hopefully for us, we just bought the guild, use the raid funds to be able to purchase Titan flasks, so our tanks can now have flasks week to week. So we've been providing three teams tanks those flasks to help keep the progression moving forward, keep the survivability up so that they can run threat gear and keep the DPS pumping. So we're first off, this is why you have the bank add-on. It's because you can see right where that money goes and what's being bought and brought in and out. And then the second half of that is we're trying to make a communal pool that everyone can benefit off of across 3 raid teams, because there's really no other way. If we don't want to require flask, because I promise you 5 gold is a lot cheaper than it's going to cost you to have a flask made for yourself every week. And so we're trying to do small amounts across a large group of people so that we can be in a position where nobody is being put out or required to sit on and farm and do obnoxious tasks like that right now. So that's the main goal behind it. That's why we do have the dues. And they're here to stay for now. If at a point we get to where we don't need to collect them, if mats and BOEs are profitable enough, we will certainly stop requiring that. But realistically, 5 gold, the first 5 gold you get, you'll then at every subsequent raid make a profit, like Gilly said, and be able to afford every raid thereafter. So bear with us on that. It is a small evil to accomplish a much greater good. But we're already into rating conversations with some of these questions, so we might as well just bite the bullet and get down into the rating information, which is realistically, we've kind of talked on the not wanting to get too sweaty, trying to maintain a good atmosphere. We do that in our raids as well. So really, number one commitment, as it says here, steady progression. Without being over sweaty or unnecessarily hardcore. And we will maintain that until the end of this guild. I know that it's a lot of our top end players even now, and I don't fault them for it, but a lot still push on the ceiling as hard as they can to get us to do a little more, to be a little sweatier. I think you're going to have the leadership core pressing back down on the ceiling a little bit to keep the lid on things. I think that we've struck a good balance, though, because you see some really solid raid performances and always improving raid performances. In the last 2 weeks, for instance, Raid Team 1 has taken 41 minutes off of their Molten Core clear time. So there are ways. This game has been theory crafted and min-maxed into the ground. There are very realistic ways to accomplish this without needing people to treat this like a second job. And so that's our commitment. I want this to be fun and remain fun so that we don't have to worry about the ills of burnout in the long run. So keep that in mind. If you ever get pushback on a suggestion from me or from one of the officers, it's very much likely a case that we're trying to balance some of the fundamental guild values with the net benefit that we might see from them in Discord, or excuse me, in the raid teams. And then the next on the raid add-ons, these are non-negotiable. So I said the guild add-ons were recommended. I'm not going to require anyone to get these, but if you're going to step into a raid with us, be it that you are a bench raider or you are a permanent raider on one of the 4 teams, these 4 add-ons you will have downloaded if you want to step into a Molten Core or an Onyxia with us, or certainly Blackwing Lair when it comes out. These are, like I said, non-negotiables. The first one is GTFO, just runs an alert sound. If you're standing in something, it's obnoxious. It sucks open world. I don't care if you turn it off when you're not in raid, but it is impossible to ignore if you're doing something stupid in raid that's going to get you killed, and so it is a requirement to have it on. And then deadly boss mods, again, it is just an announcement and an awareness tool. It is an incredibly powerful add-on that will announce everything. We usually go over fights at the top. I think every raid has been going over fights at the top. So they serve, if nothing else, as good reminders during the fight as mechanics that are coming up. Threat Classic 2, DPS, you can't get by without this, but even healers, I find myself using this certainly. Onyxia, it's a must-have, and there are other fights that you're going to need this, so keep that in mind. But Threat Classic 2, I don't care if it's Threat Classic 2 or another viable alternative. This is the one that I use, that I know a lot of people use, so it is recommended. And then the last one, again, order of importance here, they're all required, but RC Loot Council, there is no way to get loot in this guild on any of our teams that runs Loot Council without RC Loot Council downloaded. It is the only way for our loot to be distributed. It feeds into another system that I'll go over here actually in a second. That tracks loot history, that gives you all access to loot history as items are given out. And so you are not eligible to get loot without this add-on, because you just simply won't see the roll come up for it. So you need to have this downloaded and make sure it's working. I gotta go out of order on a slide because this is the when I say that we use RCing in connection with another site, that's my BIS is that site. So if you're going to raid with us on one of the 4 teams and bench raiding, you must create an account under that'smybis.com. It links with your Discord account, which will then have this server registered with the guild. So you will make a character for your main that you want to raid on, and then assign it to the guild, assign it to the raid team that you're on, or assign it to a bench raider if that's your position currently. What this will also allow you to do is to take from 60upgrades.com, and you can, or you can do it manually, but 60upgrades.com will allow you to build a wish list of best in slot items based on the phase and sources. So say you don't have professions, or you don't want to do world bosses, or you're not going to grind to rank 14. You can choose which sources you're willing to get gear from. So you don't want any BOEs because you're broke and you still got to scrounge up your 5 gold for week 1 rating. Just go in and you can turn off those sources and then create a bits list for your character and your class. It'll also allow you to see, runner-up items. So, if you're not looking for your top item, it'll let you see the relative value of alternative items. And then you can export that list the set you've built on 60upgrades.com. 60 upgrades you don't need an account for. You can do that. It saves locally on your computer. I think the cookies remember it. So when you go back, I think I just sounded like 100 years old trying to posit how the website works. But it is basically saved locally. That way you can go back and access what you've put in without creating an account. And then you can upload that to That's My BIS. all of your loot council members, depending on what team you're on, look at that information week to week. I think some people think sometimes they're just putting this stuff up into the void. We look at people's wish lists. We look at their loot history with us, and every single raid team's loot council has every week. We'll go into loot council now. Every single loot council has a 30-minute mandatory meeting weekly. So all 3 members of every team's loot council meets for at least 30 minutes. Sometimes it goes over depending on where the loot stands, and discusses priorities for gearing and who's getting what. What's more is every other week, every loot council meets with the preceptor core for a 1-hour meeting bi-weekly to go over any questions, to troubleshoot issues, to get other people's perspectives, to what went right, what went wrong, kind of conversations. So keep in mind your loot council. If you don't get a piece of gear, be kind to them. They've invested an incredible amount of their own time outside of the 6 hours a week that you are all dedicating to raiding. They're putting in at the very least, I do mean at the very least, another hour and a half of their time just to accomplish the loot council tasks on top of any raid administrative tasks that are happening. So thank them for that, and perhaps keep that in mind ahead of any disgruntled responses you might have for being lootless for the time being if a piece doesn't go your way. But that gets us into the reasoning behind loot council for the guild. Like I said, I've had a lot of experience as a guild leader, as a raid leader. I've done everything from the main set over offset +1 systems to soft reserve systems. No loot system will keep everyone happy. Everybody wants to complain about loot. It is everyone's favorite pastime in World of Warcraft. I have accepted that as a natural evil. Purple pixels bring out the worst in all of us. But the fact remains that Loot Council at least allows us to remove the RNG factor from things. So the game has the ultimate power and authority in determining what drops in the RNG and what actually is on a dead body. But from there, it removes the RNG of splash rolling and those types of systems. GDKPs are banned now, so that's gone, and regular DKPs are a barrier to entry for people who may be wanting to get into raiding. It makes bench raiding nigh impossible, and so those are systems we disfavor as well. So I literally mean when I say it's the worst except for all the rest. I think Loot Council, when you acknowledge its downfalls, when you are honest about how it's administered, and when you are transparent about the history of who gets what, has a better chance of putting a loot where it'll do the most good. And when we talk about transparency, this chart here is what we teach every member of Loot Council that joins a raid team. So these are in a weighted order what we ask ourselves when we're handing out loot. It's where does that piece of gear do the most good? What player having that is going to be the best for the team? Who gives us cause for concern? That's a pretty dynamic one. Are we worried about you getting burnt out? Are we worried about attrition? Do you have a terrible attitude? Do we think that you're a risk to take the gear and walk out of the guild? Those are things we consider. Biggest upgrade. We don't look at that one as, like I said, this is from priority 1 down, so this isn't as big of a deal. One thing people usually ask me when they see this is, oh, but what if I've put all this effort into farming my pre-raid bis and this other person didn't, and then all of a sudden they have a bigger upgrade and now they're going to get the piece? No, Because if somebody put no effort into farming their pre-raid base, guess what? That goes into factor 2 and gives me cause for concern and makes me question their commitment to the raid team. So these are just, if we need to break ties, if all things are equal, and we think that it would do as much good to two different people, if neither one of them gives us cause for concern, we might look to who has the biggest upgrade. And if it's a wash there, we'll look at outside activity from the raid team. Who are those biggest ass contestants like Hercule, etc., who maybe benefit from that piece, and we may want to show appreciation for that extra effort. But like I said, it is in that order that we consider these things for Loot Council, and that's what every single one of your teams should be doing in practice and what we coach on. And so when I say we train, I mean every bi-weekly for that hour meeting, we are talking about this, going over what went wrong, what went right, what do we want to take back, what will we do better in the future. And everyone's human. There are mistakes. There are mistakes because of RC Loot Council. There are mistakes because of from a knowledge gap. I don't mind. I don't think anybody minds when people observe those or have questions about things, posing those. We are human and are capable. We are fallible. The thing is, and what I would really ask is that anybody who has questions on Loot Council, on Loot Council decisions, on what we're doing, to approach things not from a position of I deserve X, but rather from I am curious about. Because I promise you, we are very seldom arbitrary, and most of the time are we'll almost always have a good reason for why we have done something. So keeping that in mind and approaching loot discussions with a manner of grace is often going to be a good idea for you in the long term. But we will usually answer those questions pretty quickly, often with our thinking. The thing is, we've got 120 raiders heading into 160. We cannot have individual loot conversations with all of you. It is just impossible for what is currently 9 and what will be 12 people to be making these decisions, still have time to live their life, and then be answerable to every single person. So just keep those things in mind. Again, the way you approach asking us about loot will greatly decide the manner of your reception when asking those questions. So as long as you're cognizant of that, and yes, I will say we had our first bindings drop. We're getting a lot of grats in the chat prematurely. Don't have a slide on it, but it was at this point I was going to announce that Bolthar does have his first is the bindings of the guild that have dropped. So grats to him. Very happy to see our MT of Raid Team 1 have those. We weren't sure. Minari predicted a good night for weapons, and it did prove to be a good night for weapons. Although I will say, when I asked if somebody said Thunder Fury in guild chat, nobody did the trade troll and posted it 100 times. So I was really disappointed last night. So I expect everybody to be on Atlas suit, ready to link Thunder Fury in the future.
You didn't check your whispers.
No, I got two people did link me personally Thunder Fury, but I need spam. I need just troll level spam of Thunder Fury linkage when the time comes. So that's Loot Council. We did that. Raid team rosters. This is just generalized information. I think most people have this. A note, I see a lot of new names in here who may not be on a team. Raid Team 4 applications are out. If you're not currently on a team, Raid Team 4 will be doing Tuesdays and Thursdays. Our start times, with the exception of Team 3, are standardized. So we kick off at 9 p.m. Eastern. We run until midnight Eastern. We will always do invites 15 minutes ahead. The difference is Raid Team 3 pushes that 30 minutes, so they run 9:30 to 12:30, and they start invites at 9:15 instead of 8:45. We are building that Raid Team 4 roster currently. If you're interested in that and those times, thank you for the spam in the chat. That is wonderful. Good job, Rick, in triggering. That makes me very happy. But if anybody's interested in those raid times, the announcements channel in Discord still has, I think, as the as the first post in there, the announcement for Raid Team 4 sign up sheet. So just make sure you head in there and get that information and sign up if you're interested. Bench Raiders, you have a unique and important role. And first off, let me thank a couple of people. I think Atticus was in here. I've lost your name in the sea of names here, but I know he's run with us. Bestest Boy has been great on bench. And then a couple of people who have been benching for us have upgraded into their own team. So big thank you to all of those people who have been filling in. You'll see some information about bench raiders here. If you're not signed up with a bench raider role, if you are 60 or close to 60, you do have your attunements done, you do want to be considered. Maybe you can't commit to 2 nights and you need a more relaxed rating schedule. We do post signups weekly for those days, so you can sign up to days that you're able to attend, and then availability willing, you can get in. If you don't have that role, just like I said here, DM one of the professors, preceptors, me, it doesn't matter who, to get that role assigned so you can get the pings for the bench raider channel. Check that channel frequently for those sign up sheets as they go out. And then make sure you do have a That's My Bis account set up, because and all of those add-ons downloaded. Bench raiders are required to still pay the raid dues for the week that they're there, but keep in mind that if you do lock to a raid and you are available the second night, you do get priority to go back. So you are there for the full week. You're not getting gimped night 2. You're not getting kicked out because whoever who called out night 1's coming back. We give priority to the people who show up for that first night and lock themselves in appreciation of our bench raiders taking on that role. They will get there. I also pay close attention to the people who are in bench raider. We track your attendance through every single one of our raid teams. We're actually really mindful of our raid data, and so I keep track of who is bench raiding, and you are very often the first people that I will send messages to as holes open up on raid teams, and those that I prioritize when I put together new rosters if schedule works out and you can sign up. So I do recommend those who are bench raiding for us and interested in raiding with us in general. Just because we may not have a spot for you right now does not mean it is not a really, really good idea for you to stay in, participate when you can, and wait for your number to get called. Because with as many people as we have, with as many opportunities we have, it's very likely that time will come sooner than you may think. And in the meantime, while you're there, you are eligible for loot. I think Atticus has gotten. I know Atticus has gotten pieces with us when he's running Raid Team 1. Bestus got a piece last night. So like we as loot councils are also really mindful of those people who are coming in, and so you're not just there to fill a hole. We appreciate the time that you're putting into it. Every raid member appreciates the time you're putting into it. So to the extent that you are a bench raider, keep up with that, and thank you. That leads us to our last specific point that we're going to go over, and just as a kind of flash ahead, Blackwing Lair, I don't want to oversell it, but I will say it is a step up in content, in the extent to which it's challenging, from Molten Core and Onyxia. And so I know every raid team has had maybe 25% or so people who have never raided or have not raided this content. So it's been great to see you all get into this content and be able to master it as quickly as you have. It's been really awesome to see. But having said that, it still gets a little harder. And so in order to combat that, what we're going to do is schedule some extra raid time for each of us. In particular, tanks, we're going to meet with you probably in the next week or 2. We're going to put together an all tanks meeting for all 3 raid teams to coordinate fire resist gear and make sure everybody's on the same page. We're going to work with Sumaria to put together some groups to the extent that we need to farm a couple of places. I think Strat Boss has a pair of pretty good boots, and so on and so forth that we can get from you doing runs. So we're going to work to try and put those together to get people in there and get stuff done. And so that's your first meeting, and then everybody is going to be doing the second meeting, which is going to be at least 1 week ahead of Blackwing Lair. We're going to sit everybody down for a, think of football coach prepping the team for next week's game kind of meeting. We are going to go through each of the boss fights in Blackwing Lair, go through what our strategies are going to be in there. Those are going to be raid specific, so those times will be coordinated amongst the teams. Those are not going to be raid wide. The tank meeting will be across all three teams, but these following ones will be just specific to raid team scheduling. So it'll be 40 people in 3 meetings. We don't have an official date announcement as of yesterday. I didn't check today if they had updated, but as of yesterday, there was no official blue post announcing when it was going to be. The problem with that is that it could scuff us for scheduling. So I know I was just talking with Bolthar yesterday or the day before about that. And, if it's a Thursday drop, Raid Team 1, just to put it on your radar, we may think about changing our Wednesday raid night to perhaps Thursday so that we don't miss a full lockout. We'll put out some survey to probably do ready check during one of the weeks to see once we actually get the timeline for it. Yeah, Ophel, we can talk about. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, we'll work into that. But we'll talk about that offline. We can look at that add-on together. I'll let you try and sell me on it one more time. But anyways, we can basically this slide, and what I'm saying is we're gonna need a little extra because of the expedited time frame with everybody, and the fact that we are not requiring a silly amount of consumables and everything else. We are going to require a little more time from you just on a group basis to make sure that we have everything that we need to get us into BWL at launch and to be successful early in that phase. So bear with us as we're waiting for information so that we can firm up these plans. But these are the things that we're going to be talking to everybody about across all 3 raid teams and anticipating for the 4th raid team when that starts. So just be ready for that. We will, I think at that point, we'll have to revisit how we're doing MC and Oni, depending on how long BWL is going to be doing. BWL is taking these teams. That's going to be our primary focus once it drops. But I think so far what we've been anticipating is that we'll be doing calendar signups. More typically, how raids are done guild to guild nowadays for that back content for MCs and Onis. To the extent that raids can schedule extra time among their core 40, we may just go in that route instead, or do a hybrid model of the two. But again, that's me musing out loud a little more than plans set in stone. So just keep these things in mind as we go forward. And Herc makes a really good point. Like I'm not underselling it either. Like BWL is going to be a bit tougher than MC and Oni, and we're going to have to work at the progression more so than we did. I think most teams were going in one-shotting or close to it, most bosses. So we're gonna have some we're gonna have some work. It'll be fun. So revel in it, and if nothing else, everybody can enjoy laughing at Edible, who will lose all of his world buffs because he will surely be the first one dead. And he can't say, is he even in here? I hope he's in here. Otherwise, I'm just being mean, making fun of him while he's not. But anyways, so that's the majority of what I wanted to go over, and I realize I will say in hindsight of all of this meeting, some of this information is redundant to some of you. Some of this information is redundant to in its entirety to even fewer. But to the extent that this might have had new information or more nuance on things, I think that it is really important that we're all on the same page. So my purpose of having this guild meeting in this format covering these topics was to give us all a clean slate on an even ground and knowing what our expectations are, both moving forward and from you and what you can expect from us. And that way, at subsequent meetings, like I said, third Wednesday of the month is going to be a quick check-in guild meeting, much like this, but except they're going to be probably 25% of the time. I'm thinking 15 minutes in, out, quick updates, and done. So I'm going to do one last quick. Does anybody have any questions about this second half of all of this? And see if there's anything raid specific. I know that we've gone over, be that loot council. In fact, as I'm sitting here, rather than keep it on the Q&A page, just to remind you of what we've gone over, we talked raid add-ons, loot council, team formation, and then BWL planning. So does anybody have any questions on topics that we've addressed in here tonight that they want addressed or want some more information on? So you can just request to speak if you've got anything in the short term. I got Kikyo. Kikyo, you've got the invite. You should be able to talk. I think you actually need to accept it.
Faithful, check your DM too, please.
Hello.
Cosmic, what do you got?
Do you know if there's going to be any specific buffs that we'll need for Blackwing Lair?
Yeah. So right now we are not anticipating adjusting our current requirements for raid. So by the way, I should mention raid rules channel is a must read start to finish without skimming, skipping, starting and stopping. Go in and actually read the raid rules channel. But having said that, right now we are not immediately going to change what we are requiring of you to show up with. So for now, Onyxia and Food Buff will remain the two requirements to raid week to week. If we feel like our numbers don't support that lax of a structure, we may start doing tribute runs and try and hold instance open. I know a lot of people have been doing that anyways, which is fantastic. We may formalize that a little bit more and schedule times for people to boon DMT buffs week to week. But Bolthar just mentioned the Uber's buff, doing the MC for the Uber's buff. Raid to raid. So there are buffs that we will consider, but for right now, as far as like individual responsibilities for raid, we're not planning a change. That may in fact change, but it is what we have it posted for right now. But like I said, our main thing is we will be dynamic in how we approach new content, and if we feel it necessary to adjust that, we will, and we will announce it.
All right, thanks.
Yep. And Kikyo, I see you're up here with us now. What do you got?
Hey, McFaithful, thanks. I had two questions. First one was on the loot. For just for information purposes, going into some of the later phases, having raided in previous content, especially in 40-man, you tend to see some burnout or people that take a break, especially when new content and everything's competitive for, especially even within the Blizzard content. I guess my only question is, how you guys think Loot Council compares to like a DKP or a merit-based prio system in terms of continued raid attendance? I know that you guys take that into account with it's kind of baked into Loot Council, but I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Yeah, it is, and so you took what would have been the first part of my answer with your caveat to that, which is it really is essentially baked in. I think it's baked in two ways. The first of it is that we have that second factor of who's giving us cause for concern, who's indicating that they may be burnt out. Um, we can't predict every person and what's going on with their lives and what's going on in their heads, certainly less even than that. So what we do as a guild and as a system of leadership structure is get as much data captured as we possibly can. So on our end, every single raid has a roster tracker where we track attendance. And when I tell you we track attendance, I mean we're tracking who's showing up on time, who's showing up 5 minutes late, who's showing up 15 minutes late, who no showed, who called out for what reason, what days. And we have that information going back to the first day of every single raid group in that kind of granular detail. So when you call us and say you got into a car accident, I've got that day that you called it and it said it was a car accident. So in 4 weeks from now, if you get into another fender bender, I might come looking at you going, we usually approach our attendance with a lot of grace and understanding, but to the extent to which we're trying to make sure that the people who are committed are the ones who are in the raids first off, and second off, the ones getting the loot. That's one of the main methods that we use to keep that accounted for. The other side of things that I wanted to mention is, and this is kind of the flip side of like why not DKP, is I've seen DKP systems that have tried to account for it, but none that have ever successfully tackled the but what about when I lose a raider? Because despite the loot system, people still will drop out. And the problem becomes when I have to get somebody to come in to replace that raider. DKP often is a barrier, a really big barrier to filling that position. And so, like I said, there's no perfect loot system, but Loot Council, for all the reasons I talked about earlier, for all of those that I'm mentioning now, is what we have found to be one of the best fits to try at least to kind of account for all of those X factors that make raid management such a treat to deal with. So
Thanks with Faithful. My second question was looking ahead. I know we have the roster assignments for like raid leadership and support, but since the content does get a little bit harder as we go into each phase, are there opportunities that people can put forward mechanics discussion and planning and prep work? For instance, like Cthulhu is a big one. I know that's a ways out, but like just things that can help where people have experience doing that want to step up in that role. What would that look like, and how would you envision that?
yeah, I think that those kind of conversations are going to happen twofold. Number one, in terms of just for instance, I know you're a class leader, so this is it's very helpful. In preparation for advanced phases, we'll probably try and put our raiders with their class leaders ahead of new content to discuss what's changing, what gear, etc. looks like. I think that's one way. I think when you're talking about tactics and the tactics that raid teams themselves want to employ, that's one thing that I prefer to leave to the purview of the raid leaders themselves, team by team. So I think that those discussions can happen on a micro level. So for instance, you again, you're here talking to me, so I'll use you an example. You're on raid team 1. If when we have a kind of discussions about tactics, we'd be, I'm happy to hear from your suggestions about what's going on, and we can implement those. It depends, and then depending on what works and what doesn't when we're on the ground and in there, we usually take those raid leadership times to share those in and amongst raid teams. But like I said, I like to, as far as the how each fight's going to run, what strategies raids are going to use, I leave that to the raid leaders themselves. So I can only speak for myself, but I'm happy to certainly hear those suggestions. Gilly's right next to me here. I'd imagine he would say the same. Keep the suggestions coming. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
yeah, and
I guess what I'm trying to avoid, and we haven't run into this, I think that's great, especially speaking for raid team 1, but 40 people, and when things start to go sideways, you get a lot of unsolicited feedback in the moment.
yeah,
I think that's always going to happen, and I know you guys try to keep a fairly moderate, clear comms, but I guess what I'm looking for more is like, uh, it would be nice if there could be some, and part of that prep time, maybe in one of the meetings leading up to a phase, if we could be able to put forth in like a more proactive nature than a reactive. I would just be welcome to that. Just people giving suggestions on raid mechanics, especially from point of view from class or range versus melee.
yeah. Well, and I think that like I said earlier, we're planning on doing like an all raid specific meetings ahead of BWL, and I think that is going to be probably the venue of choice for those kinds of discussions that you're talking about.
Okay, thank you. That's all for my questions. Thanks.
Awesome, yeah, no problem. Thank you. And we got Bolzar.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm not gonna try to put you on the spot too much on schedule, but when you're talking about MC and Anixia, were you talking about like a voluntary third day for the raid teams, or I guess I wasn't sure what you meant as far as selecting a time for those.
Yeah, you mean the part where I said I'm using out loud? Don't hold me to any of it.
Yeah, that part.
That's that exact part. Yeah. So what I was saying, just to clarify, yeah. So I think in the early days of BWL, and I think I saw a message you were discussing this. uh, I think it's possible, it's almost guaranteed you can get to the point where BWL and MC and Oni can be done each on their own night. So a 2-day raid schedule allows teams to focus that content themselves. But yeah, I think in the early days of BWL, when that should be the focus, those 2 days are probably going to be dedicated to BWL content. And then we'll try and organize third, but yes, optional times for MC and Oni. So what I was suggesting too in the context of bench raiders is those sign-up sheets will be coming probably more frequently during that period of time. But yeah, I think that's probably what we're going to be looking for structurally. I know 3 days is a commitment that no one signed up for necessarily when they were talking about their raid schedule, so I can't require that. I don't think I will require that. But that's the direction, at least for the early part of that content where we're trying to get BWL on farm, that will probably work towards that.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of the sense of keeping it open so that it can still happen because I probably don't need to point out, but MC still has stuff that's BIS, like even up to phase 5, like your onslaught girdles, your
Yeah.
mage blades, your choker of the fire lords, plus obviously legendaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why, yeah, we want to. I'm the main goal is to maximize chances at loot and also keep our progression going in BWL. So we're going to do what we can to strike the right balance there. But yeah, like I said, these are the early musings as we're trying to figure out what our progression timetable does actually look like. going forward. Which honestly is a good segue, though you didn't touch on it at all in your question. I'm gonna bring this up on my own here. Is just when it comes to progression and clear times and making sure the raid's efficient, one thing that people should be mindful of is every raid team is logging. To the extent that the raid teams are logging, we are not requiring minimum parses. We are not, gear checking like guilds would normally do. But we do look to see, number one, who's improving. Our parses going up as kill times are going down, etc. And the other thing is, if we see a big knowledge gap or a rotational issue, that's why we have class leaders. And so your raid leader may reach out to you and say, hey, I think something's going wrong here that needs a little diagnosis, and they might send you to one of your class leaders. That is how this system is supposed to work. So keep in mind that you may in fact be asked to go and talk to somebody. It's not a punishment. It is nothing about your character, but it is a matter of us trying to progress and progress at a reasonable pace. We'd like to keep everybody on the teams that they're on, and so we do need to make some concessions with that. And getting you coaching is the least invasive strategy that I have from a guild perspective to keep everybody on track with performance requirements. So stay tuned if you do get a message like that from your raid leader. Those will all be done in private. You're not going to get called out in front of a raid. We will, DM you, whisper you, etc. But just keep that in mind if you're on the lower end of our DPS meters, or there's a disconnect in heals per second going out or something like that. Obviously healers and tanks parsing is a unique thing, so we go a little bit deeper than that. But you may get messages about that because we are looking forward to towards BWL and what our progression timetables are going to look like. So to those who are on raid teams, just keep that in mind. If you do get a message, we're not saying you suck, we're not saying you're terrible, we're just saying, hey, we think there are some things you could do to put yourself up on the meters and achieve more than you are currently. So just be mindful of that. It is progression oriented, nothing about you. Kikyo asked about our ground parsers. Obviously, our class lead for ground parsers is Edible, so I will direct any questions to him. Both are any follow-ups?
No, that's good. I like the plan. I agree. I think it's going to be a 2-day thing to start with, but yeah, I mean, I would think there'd be interest in a third day.
Yeah, definitely.
There will be for me.
Sounds good. Oh, you been with Thunder Fury, man? You got your mining? You still gonna ship out for a third day?
Yeah, well, it's a 2-parter.
Oh, it's gonna no, but we're gonna get you the second half of BWL. Come on,
I like your attitude.
try and be the
Yeah,
positive one. Minari's the hard ass.
I'll even watch y'all's raids just so it has a higher chance of dropping. Since I seem to be a good luck charm for you.
Are you rejoining Raid Team 1? Is that?
I know. I was just watching the other night when it dropped. So I think
Oh,
me
okay.
just watching is good enough.
All right, so we set up this complex set of superstitions that we need to repeat. So we need
That's
Minari
right.
to make a comment, Gil to watch. We
And
need
Gal
Galmera
needs
to
to be
die on the
silent.
pack before. Yeah, he has to be silent and then die on the pack before.
Yep.
Listen,
Perfect.
I'm not redoing the honor thing. That's gonna have to stay out.
Awesome. All right. Any other follow-ups? Oh, I got one more
I did
submitted by DM. Yeah. Is that what you were gonna ask about, Gilly?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about MC trash runs. We are, as you've heard through all of this, had a lot going on in terms of trying to manage all of the raid side of things that we haven't done formalized MC trash runs. I'm going to say, and I know I had a DM about this, and I promise it's on my radar, and we have just talked about it. I don't have more right now on MC trash runs. other than to say stand by and we will put something out on it in like the next 2 or 3 days. So just we're getting through this meeting, try and make sure we had our game plan going into phase 3 and get prepped for this meeting. And so I know a couple of people have had interest in that. I think that those are really important, especially as we look to have a fourth raid team that is going to need douses. I think raid 3 is still short some douses, bench raiders that need them as well. So we're on board for them in theory. It's the administration of them that we're trying to discuss and come up with some creative solutions. So, like I said, stay tuned for that. And we're a little over what I was hoping. So I'll give it one last shot. If anyone's got any last minute questions, to pop in now or forever hold your peace, or at least for the next month. I don't know if Minari or Gilly, if either of you have gotten anything during this time.
Has the date for phase 3 BWL been announced yet?
No, there's not been
Uh,
a specific date put forward for that. No. So we don't have anything else to go on other than rumors and conjecture, unfortunately, which may prove correct, but that's why we're a little non-committal in terms of what exactly things are going to look like, but just trying to give you all the best heads up we can. Suggested guild add-ons, but not the raid one. Yes, we can. These are the guild recommended add-ons here. And again, this Minari's been recording this, so the video itself should be up. I don't expect anyone to listen to the whole musings of Ass all in its entirety, but if you have something that you recall us talking about but couldn't quite remember, you should be able to return back to the recording to get the information. And if not, we are usually pretty responsive in DMs and whispers. One thing I will say is our guild currently has 1,800 members. Obviously, that's not unique accounts. I think our unique account number looks more like 1,650 right now. But it's a lot of people, and it's a significant amount of work to manage both little ass and big ass. Little ass is now full. It has 1,000 members, and we're usually seeing about 25 to 30 transfers a week from little to big ass across the last 2 weeks. Now that guild's been up and running, and so just keep in mind, my whispers tend to go very quickly. My DMs tend to fill up. If I ever miss something from you, I promise I will never be offended having somebody say, "Hey, did you get my message?" I will very often thank you because I will immediately go, "Fuck, I completely forgot. I meant to say X." So just please, again, always with a little bit of grace and forgiveness in your tone, always feel free to come and ask me again what you have already asked me. If I've already given you an answer, asking me again may not be a great idea. But if I have completely ignored you for some reason, or I'm in the middle of managing the raid, find me. I promise I will get you an answer. For those in Little Ass, just remember, I know a lot of people just joined the server and maybe listening in here. If you are in Aspiring Scholar Society, the level ranges for that are from 10 to 49. At level 50, you can transfer up to Adept Scholar Society. There's obviously a larger community of people leveling from that 10 to 49 range, so we want you down there so you can find groups, hopefully easier than in LFG, have a better community. And then when it comes time to get ready to look to, BRD and your pre-raid BIS farming, we want you to be in a community like Adept that's got the higher level characters with the base of knowledge that can help grind you. That's where Samaria is going to step in and try and help you with organizing those runs, etc. So if you are in Little Ass, welcome. Thank you for being part of that upstart. It's been really successful. If you're in Adept now and you are an aspiring graduate, congrats. And again, thank you for helping to make that experiment a success. So we are very happy with both of our cheeks, both aspiring and adept, and we are looking forward to keeping everything moving on a similar note at a similar pace from now until Cataclysm, Blizzard willing. So I haven't seen any more questions pop up. I've extended my monologue as long as I'm willing to.
Can I add
And
one thing before we close?
so Gilly's gonna give you the second to last word. What do you got, Gilly?
So I know I've been approached by one individual about a desire to help with the mats for the elixirs and things like that. So if anybody is wanting to help out with the materials that's required to make some of the elixirs that we're using, or flask, wrong word, flask that we use, you can send those materials to, you see Scholar Bank up there. If you send that to the mail there's like a little system that even keeps track of like contributions type thing. So if anybody's interested in donating materials to be used in those flasks, that's where you can make your donations for that
Yeah,
to help
there's
out your raid teams.
Adept Bank and Scholar Bank are both the characters that are available on the guild for guild banks. And so those you can send to either. They are the same. I will ship things from one to the other to organize myself. Don't worry about that. If you'd like to make a donation to the guild bank, all you have to do is just send what you're willing to send in to that character, Adept Bank or Scholar Bank. If you forget that, it is in the guild information of Adept Scholar Society. You can go to the G-Info tab, and those are listed there. But any of the other information, if you go to the server guide at the top left of the Discord channel, the server guide has a lot of that information. If the server guide's not going to have it, Raid Rules channel is probably your next best bet. And if you can't find in either of those two places, just ping in Adept chat. Usually, everyone's been really helpful about responding to questions. So you can always go there, or aspiring chat. If you're an aspiring member, you can use aspiring chat. So
And both of those names are also reflected in the add-on, the GBank Classic. The two tabs are the
yes,
names
so
of
if
the
you do,
characters.
yes, if you do download that, the one caveat to that is that those members of aspiring won't have access to that if you download the add-on. But once you hit 50 and transfer up to the big guild, you'll be able to have access to the add-on information. There's just no, it's not feasible for me to have that information go down to the lower guild. It's not particularly necessary at those levels, unfortunately, even though I'm sure everybody would love to see 1,000 linen bags available for their level 8s. But it's just not feasible. So you'll get that information when you transfer up to the big guild. So again, I want to thank everyone for being here, for sitting through a PowerPoint on at 9 to 10 o'clock on a random Wednesday in February for a game that's 20 years old. But frankly, I will tell you, this has been a really rewarding experience on my side to be the GM and to have all of you here. A lot of fun, couple bumps, nothing we haven't been able to overcome. And looking forward to the rest of this that's left to come. So thank you all, and look forward to getting into some raids and seeing you in game. Hit me up if you got any questions. Message somebody in leadership. Be kind to one another, and we will see you in the game. So have a great night. I'm going to close out the chat here once I figure out what button to click, and I will catch everybody around. So thank you again.